This show contains explicit language and themes and is for entertainment only. We do not guarantee the accuracy of our content. This podcast is not for sensitive individuals, ideological or religious extremists, or little bitches. I don't know that atheists should be considered citizens, nor should they be considered patriots. This is one nation, under God. Former American President George W. Bush.
May God have mercy on your soul.
They got together and swore a pact to the devil. They said, "We will serve you."
Bunch of filthy sodomites and queers. I'm the one who has the guts to preach against them.
On atheism, there's nothing wrong with drinking your dad's sperm.
The Antichrist has come.
They're in there like Sauron or Sauron and just dark sorcerers, total power.
No homos will ever be allowed on this church as long as I'm the pastor here. Never!
Dinosaurs lived beside people about 6,000 years ago, and they were vegetarian to start with.
When you really look at the evidence, the truth is it takes more faith to be an atheist than it does to believe in God. Behold the atheist's nightmare.
They're just tools of the media to brainwash you.
Let's get this party started.
That which can be asserted without evidence can be rejected without evidence.
This is an issue of the separation of ignorant, scientifically illiterate people from the ranks of school teachers.
My answer is I don't know, and your answer is something beyond comprehension.
It should be irrelevant, but it isn't because it does infringe on people's liberties.
Can you point to any positive scientific evidence in favour of creation?
Then there are all the people who seem to have faith claims that are so elastic as to commit them to absolutely nothing.
I mean, I'll tell you something. If I was told to sacrifice them to prove my devotion to God, if I was told to do what all monotheists are told to do, and admire the man who said, yes, I'll gut my kid to show my love of God, I'd say, no, fuck you.
Welcome to the Unholy Generations podcast. We are your hosts, two second-degree atheists from the Atheist One World Order. I'm Mike.
And I'm Ryan, and we are together.
Yeah.
Yeah, we haven't seen each other in a while. We've been recording about 200 miles apart or so.
Yeah. Road trip.
Yeah. So today we have a very special episode. We didn't go anywhere, but we decided to do a conspiracy theory special. So basically our idea with it was that there are these conspiracy theories that have pretty much become mainstream, if you could say that, in the sense that everybody knows about them. So like lizard people and flat earth and stuff like that, whatever, It's boring now. Everybody knows about it. It's old. So we decided to look for smaller conspiracy theories that not a lot of people have heard of maybe. And we just want to give them a little bit of light and make fun of them.
Yeah, so I mean, to be fair, we're not exactly on the cutting edge of conspiracy theory, you know, what's current and what's hot, what's not. So some of these you might hear and you might already know about, and they might actually be semi-mainstream, but these are ones that we had never heard of going into this. So
right, and mine in particular are a little bit more like you might have heard of them, but it's more specific examples and going into specific communities around them too, because that just adds a whole different layer of crazy to it. So. Hey guys, just before we get started, I have a little bit of a disclaimer. We decided to go in and record some stuff over again, just for better quality after the fact. So some of the audio in this recording might sound a little bit different, and that's just because we're not in person anymore. Mike is going to start us off.
Sure, yeah. So all my information I got from Conspiracy Wiki, conspiracytruths.co.uk, and bibliotecalifates.net. I think that's how you say that, to Caliphates. And then the actual, good information I got from Rational Wiki and Skeptoid. So.
Okay.
So, our first conspiracy is about the Codex Alimentarius. It's a compilation of safety guidelines and handling standards published by the branch of the World Trade Organization.
Okay.
And the Latin name literally means book of food. So it has a lot to do with like the best general principles that are agreed upon by healthcare professionals for things like how you should handle meat, the dangers of pesticides, packaging and processing of food, as well as like specific instructions for collecting test samples and statistical analyses and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
The conspiracy is that some people think that the Codex is part of a sinister plot to depopulate the planet, and they call it like softcore eugenics.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah.
So, okay, I feel like a lot of that probably is going to stem from the kind of creepy Latin name. Is that true?
I think a lot of people are like, oh, it's Latin, therefore Illuminati, therefore evil.
Okay,
that's where I think a lot of it comes from. Yeah.
So I'm waiting for the Jews too. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure they're behind the scenes doing stuff. So basically, they believe that the Codex is trying to depopulate the planet through the insidious practice of toxifying our food and causing people to have malnutrition. They call it Nurticide.
Nurticide.
Nurticide. Death by nutrition.
Is that a franchise of the Nutrisystem?
It's genocide through nutrition. So there's a whole conspiracy theory history background with this, which I couldn't confirm this through, non-conspiracy theory sources. Yeah. So I don't think any of it's true, but it's kind of funny to listen to.
Yeah,
so.
We had to abandon all of our better researching
abilities.
Yeah. It's like there's no way to do this without going onto some shady website.
we had to dumb down our research skills to a 3rd grade level. If the book says it, I guess it's true.
Yeah, it's like we could have been fact checkers for Donald Trump's team.
So apparently in 1948, following World War II, at the Nuremberg Tribunal, there was a man found guilty of crimes against humanity. Now, I couldn't confirm the name of this person because at first they didn't give his name, and then other resources gave 2 different people's names, so I'm not sure exactly who it was. But I think it was Fritz der Mur, who was in charge of a company called IG Farben. Now, IG Farben was involved in producing gas for gas chambers. They were providing raw materials for the construction of concentration camps and railroads and things like that. And they were basically providing the Nazis with all kinds of assets through World War II.
Gross.
Basically, Dermer gets sentenced, he serves his time, and then he gets out, and I guess he's really still gung-ho pro-Nazi, and he's thinking, how can I control the world in the most efficient way possible? And he gets the idea of food. He can do it through the food supply.
Yeah, I mean, everybody needs it.
Yeah, that's his thinking. So he goes to the UN, and he apparently has Nazi friends in the UN who are totally on board with this, and they're like, yeah, this is great, let's do it. And so they established the Codex Alimentarius Commission. And the long-term goal of the commission is to have the global implementation of the Codex Alimentarius. But as far as what I could turn up in, decent research, there was no corroborating story to indicate that any of this is true. By all indications, the Codex Alimentarius Commission was established by the Food and Agriculture Administration in order to help the process of providing easy access to nutritious and inexpensive food, and became essential for feeding refugees and displaced persons in war-torn Europe after World War II. So then the commission began expanding and setting up various committees and councils that were in charge of researching various aspects of food and health. So some of it was nutrition, some of it was food processing, some of it was, safety, food handling, all kinds of stuff.
Like stuff we think of as FDA territory here?
Yeah, basically. So the Codex Commission was administered by the World Health Organization and the Food and Agriculture Administration of the UN, and both of those organizations jointly fund and run the commission at the request of the UN since 1963. The Codex Alimentarius name is based on a much older set of standards and regulations used by the Austro-Hungarian Empire before World War II, and they called it the Codex Alimentarius Austricus. So that's almost, they stole the name almost directly. A lot of the other conspiracy theories I'm not going to do a whole lot to debunk because they're so fucking crazy. Mm-hmm. They do it themselves.
Yeah.
But I'm going to do a little bit of debunking.
Okay.
So The first thing is that compliance with the Codex Elementaris is completely voluntary. There's no requirements to follow, the rules. Even if you were a member country, you don't have any responsibility to follow the, rules and regulations outlined in the Codex.
Okay, so that's like how a lot of stuff is with the UN. It's completely voluntary. Like
it's voluntary.
What was it? The thing that Trump pulled out of the Paris Accords, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So like you don't have to comply with it, but it's recommended that you do. But the UN doesn't have any enforcement power because they're not like it is in the conspiracies.
Yeah, same concept here. There is no arm of enforcement or legal ramifications for non-compliance whatsoever. Member countries have to sign on for the regulations to apply to their citizens at all, which they can still go through, and like if there are certain regulations and standards they don't agree with, they don't have to impose those on anybody, and they won't face any repercussions for that. But the conspiracy counter-argument is that, well, that's not necessarily true. It's a sort of, de facto enforcement because of the World Trade Organization.
Okay.
So what happens is the World Trade Organization has accepted the standards set out by the Codex for settling disputes concerning food and food trade. So, if two organizations are brought to the World Trade Organization in the dispute resolution process, and one country is Codex compliant and the other is not, then the Codex compliant country automatically wins the case regardless of the merit of the opposition or of the opposing country.
Okay, so like you said, there's no enforcement arm on this protocol, so that's obviously not true.
Yeah, right. So a couple of things is, first off, I actually sat down and I read the Dispute Settlement Understanding, which is the legal document which the World Trade Organization uses to determine who wins and who loses a dispute. And in all 13 articles, nowhere is there any rule saying that non-Codex compliant member countries automatically lose cases regardless of merit when pinned up against a Codex compliant country. It's it's bullshit.
It's you have the letter of the law. You got to read between the lines, Michael.
That's just the document they put out to fool the public. That's what they want you to think.
Yeah, they have a shadow trade organization.
That's what they want you to think.
It's the deep state.
Yeah. So the other thing I was wondering about was, they say that because they have this de facto power of being able to determine who wins and who loses disputes in the World Trade Organization, this sort of creates a demand for being Codex compliant, right? So you would expect that, all the World Trade Organizations would be Codex compliant, and then if you're not a part of the World Trade Organization, you wouldn't need to be Codex compliant because it's a bad thing, right? There are 195 countries existing in the world today. Of those 195, there's 164 of those countries are member countries of the World Trade Organization, and 186 countries are Codex compliant. So there are more Codex compliant countries than there are World Trade Organization countries, which, let's just assume that the 164 World Trade Organization countries are all Codex compliant. Let's just assume that's true.
Okay.
Why would all the other Codex compliant countries that are not a part of the World Trade Organization bother to be Codex compliant if it's like this evil, Nurticide, soft eugenics scheme?
Okay.
The other thing is that the goal, again, in the conspiracy theory line of thinking, is to make the Codex Elementaris standards global. But they haven't done that yet. They're still short, 9 countries? They're still 9 countries short, so they failed there. They haven't gotten there yet. But when this came out, there was a lot of, backlash of people thinking, that's essentially where the conspiracy started, is people just immediately came up with all these rumors and, it's this horrible, sinister thing. So I actually have some headlines, I think these were courtesy of Skeptoid.com, that were published around the time that the Codex Elementaris standards were coming into circulation.
It's old school fake news.
Yeah, basically. Here are some of the headlines. Population control under the guise of consumer protection. Big Brother's plan to control health supplements. Codex Elementaris Commission, a threat to mankind.
Oh my god, so things haven't changed.
An introduction to soft kill eugenics. Codex Elementaris, control over the food supply and world government. Billions of people expected to die under current Codex Alimentarius guidelines.
Billions of
Billions.
people? When was this?
Billions. There's only like 6 billion on the planet. How many billions are they taking off?
Okay, so like if this were like what, in the 60s or 70s or something like that, that's got to be like 3 billion at the
Yeah.
3 or 4.
Yeah.
They're saying like half the population,
Yeah,
at least half the population is going to be killed.
Apparently. So the other thing I found with this conspiracy theory is that it was a conspiracy theory that was really compatible for people who were like really anti-GMO.
Yeah.
Because they would hop on this conspiracy bandwagon and kind of extend the narrative to say that like GMOs are a vehicle to spread the Codex toxins and commit nutricide worldwide. You know, just as kind of a side note, most anti-GMO arguments I hear are more about like anti-Monsanto and like how the organization is bad and it's crooked and it's shady and all that stuff. But I don't hear any like actual suppletive arguments against GMOs themselves.
Yeah, and you know, it's interesting on that side note, because Bill Nye used to be anti-GMO, but when he would talk about it, all he would do is talk about Monsanto's practices.
Yeah.
And then when he actually did the research, he came around and,
Exactly.
and started supporting GMOs.
There was a study conducted by the National Academics of Science, and they showed there was no demonstrable negative effects associated with GMOs.
Yeah, obviously.
But you can see how if you're already primed to think that, you know, it's people telling you that there's an evil, shady Nazi organization controlling the food supply, you could be like, oh, GMOs! You know?
Yeah.
So, just a few more things on this. Here are some of the commonly believed conspiracies about the Codex Alimentarius standards and practices. The Codex defines nutrients as poison, which will then lead to engineering non-nutritional foods for the public. Raw foods will be pasteurized through irradiation or chemical reaction to remove nutritional value. So, for all Codex-compliant countries, all the animals must be treated with antibiotics and growth hormones. And it's funny because in this section, you have like those little citation numbers at the top. Almost all of these say citation needed. They just make claims and then didn't bother to cite it.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so that's one of them. Also, every cow must be treated with Monsanto's recombinant bovine growth hormone, citation needed. Milk from these cows has also been known to cause breast, colon, and prostate cancers. For most member countries, growing food at home will be banned, citation needed, except for official compliance permits. Genetically modified corn are less nutritional than organic corn and very dangerous.
Okay, so real organic or natural corn is like, what is it, like 1/10 the size of GMO corn?
Yeah, something like that. So, according to Japan, in addition to residual pesticides, just all of Japan,
okay.
In addition to residual pesticides, GMO food may also contain harmful allergens or bacteria containing the virus, and they're used to inject the DNA to create the GMO.
Okay.
Okay. So the Codex Alimentarius Commission is controlled by the World Health Organization, which is Rothschild controlled.
Oh, of course.
And the UN, which implies that they're part of an integral segment or arm of the establishing the One World Order. And the last thing I got on this one is, I think this is off of Conspiracy Truth's website. There are 12 points for understanding and combating the Codex Alimentarius threat. And it just gives 12 bullet points. I'll read these out because they're pretty funny. First one is customer protection? Unfortunately not. The first step to understanding the Codex Alimentarius is to realize that it has nothing to do with customer protection. That's propaganda for the sake of getting people and Congress to yield to its implementation. Number 2, says who? Rima E. Liebau, who is an MD, is a successful natural medicine physician who graduated from Albert Einstein College of Medicine, has studied more than 16,000 pages of Codex Alimentarius documentation. Her conclusion? Codex Alimentarius is a very serious threat to health freedom, and we must take it seriously. Which, that's just a textbook argument from authority. Number 3, meaning of the name and the history of the organization. It was created to regulate and thus control every aspect of how food and nutritional supplements are produced and sold to the consumer. It is solely about trade and profits of multinational corporations.
Of course.
Ooh, spooky Latin name. Spooky Latin. Number 4, bolstering the profits of the pharmaceutical industry. So, I mean, you can see where that one's going.
Of course.
Number 5, the Codex Alimentarius is unscientific. And it's unscientific because it classifies nutrients as toxins and uses risk assessment to set ultra-low standards called safer upper limits.
What does that even mean, classifies nutrients as toxins?
I have no idea. I think what they're saying is, like, if you look at what's been published, they're like, yeah, cyanide, that's good for you. Like, or iron, no, you don't want any of that.
Okay, so maybe I heard, now I'm not a science person, but I heard that you need a certain amount of heavy metals in order to operate your immune system and stuff like that. So maybe there's something about that in there.
It could be the
speculation,
case. Yeah, it could be. And then they go on to say, like, risk assessment is a branch of toxicology, the science of studying toxins. But apparently the proper science is supposed to be biochemistry, and Codex doesn't use biochemistry. They use toxicology because they're studying toxins. See the connection? See that?
Ooh,
yeah.
Okay, yeah. I never thought of that before.
Yeah. Number 6, it's based on a tyrannical Napoleonic legal code, and that's talking about the code of the Austro-Hungarian Empire that it was based off of, even though it's not at all the same, but whatever.
Obviously.
Yeah. Shrewdly, slowly raising heat, number 7.
What?
Yeah. The Codex will go into global effect as of 2009, which it didn't. Unless we, the people, take action to avert it. Right now, we are like a frog being slowly boiled alive. And the heat is raising gradually, and we have to jump out of the water. So this one's not actually like an argument. It's a big metaphor scare tactic.
Ooh, scary metaphor.
Ooh, you don't want to be a frog that's boiled alive, do you?
Ooh, be careful or I'll bring out the similes.
Number 8, beware Codex is a wolf in sheep's clothing.
There's another metaphor.
Yeah. So apparently one-time defenders of supplements and nutritional products, such as the National Nutritional Foods Association and the Council for Responsible Nutrition, have fallen prey to the pharmaceutical members and are spreading disinformation and saying the Codex is customer protection. So they're getting in there and they're turning the good people. Number 9, VMG, banning our supplements. Apparently, they're like, in the Codex, there's a part in the Codex that's called the Codex Alimentarius Vitamin and Mineral Guideline, and they're saying, like, they want to ban many clinically effective vitamins and minerals, such as vitamin C and amino acids.
Ban amino acids.
How does that even work?
Ban amino acids.
Ban amino acids. So like all food then, just no more food for anybody.
No more food is available. Sorry, it's all illegal.
Just like the cops come by, amino acid check. We gotta look in your pantry.
No, all you can have is pure lipids. That's it.
That's it. May as well just go to Costco and load up on lard and mayonnaise because that's all you can eat.
Of all the things, amino acids. I guess it might sound scary because it's an acid. Like vinegar.
Number 10, DESHA, our best legal defense, and they're talking about the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act.
Okay.
And they're just saying this is like the frontline defense against the Codex. And then they follow that with number 11, congressional effort underway to undermine DESHA. So there's the conspiracy part again where Congress is in on it.
Oh, yeah, because Congress is so pro-UN.
Right? Number 12, the U.S. government illegally supports the Codex.
What?
Illegally supports the Codex. So it says that the U.S. Codex Office is unfortunately highly supportive of the Codex. So is the rest of the government, including pharmaceutical-friendly FDA, and they should not be. DSHA and other U.S. law means that their support is in direct violation of U.S. laws, and they're breaking the laws, and they know it. They know it.
Well, I don't know. Maybe it's one of those things where, they would be in charge of enforcing laws.
Number 12, let's enter coordinational relationships with Congress. More Congress is the bad, And number 14 is a call to action, and they're basically just like, hey, we need to, make more people understand that there's a threat. There's a fire, and you need to tell people. So that's all I got for that one. That one's probably the most kind of in-depth and dry one that I found. That's the driest conspiracy theory I found.
Oh, great. Okay. So mine is a little bit more laconic. Michael, when was the last time you heard from James Randi?
Jeez, I don't know.
Well, in 2011, the famous Canadian skeptic James Randi gave a TED Talk about homeopathy, quackery, and fraud.
As he usually does.
Yes.
Yeah.
In this talk, he had the gall to dismiss the merits of water's memory and ability to maintain the characteristics of materials placed in it.
Memory?
Yes, water has memory. Yeah, that's the whole thing behind homeopathy. Like, if you don't, if you don't know what this is, like homeopathy, the idea is that the substance gets stronger the more that you dilute it, because water has a memory of what was once placed in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's not pseudoscience, right?
No, not at all. So anyway, he had the gall to deny this, and in order to demonstrate that homeopathy had no effect, he downed an entire bottle of homeopathic sleeping pills, sealing his fate with his hubris.
His hubris.
Mm-hmm.
Like Odysseus.
Yes. Randi then proceeded to give his talk, which lasted about 16 minutes after the incident. Then, according to Reddit user Homeo Sapiens, within minutes of finishing his talk, he fell into a coma and died soon after.
Okay.
Homeo Sapiens said that the other, quote, new atheists didn't want anyone to know that homeopathy was real, so they kept his death quiet. But I don't think that it's a coincidence that his group stopped offering $1 million after that incident.
Okay, so 2 things. First of all, he's totally right. You remember at our last atheist meeting, they were totally talking about this.
Right,
you remember
yes.
that? Yeah. So hush, hush. we don't want the other, the believers to know that.
That's right. Yeah, we gotta.
We're gonna have to edit this out.
Yeah.
Can't let the truth get out. But the other thing about the whole $1 million thing, the reason they stopped offering it is because I heard about this. There was just too many people coming for the $1 million, and half of them weren't even they weren't even good. Yeah. They weren't even good frauds. They were shitty at being frauds.
Yeah, so they implemented new standards where you had to have a public following and stuff like that.
Yeah, you had to have so many followers on YouTube or so many views or have so much popularity before they'd consider you for it. But then everybody was like, oh, see, they're trying to repress the truth.
It's getting hot. He goes on to explain that the new atheists, again in scare quotes, had to keep up the charade for a while until they could see an out that wouldn't cause suspicion. So Randi imposters continued to make appearances. At Reason Rally in 2012, he was a Tupac. He was a Tupac style hologram.
Like in the South Park episode.
And it was a lookalike who accepted awards on his behalf. So further proof was offered by Homeo Sapiens, who pointed out that the 2014 documentary about his life, An Honest Liar, was suspiciously bereft of collaboration with Randi himself and only used archival footage.
So what? I mean, isn't that also true for the Stephen Hawking movie?
Yeah, well...
he wasn't really involved in the making of that movie, but he's still fucking alive.
Yeah, so I haven't seen this, but I think it's kind of a little bit of a hit piece, so no shit.
Oh, it's a hit piece. Okay, that makes... Yeah. Well, then, yeah, of course he didn't collaborate with it.
Yeah, and then finally, in 2015, the new atheists, again with the fucking scare quotes, saw an opportunity and said that he retired in Florida, I guess, like saying your dog went to live on a farm.
Yeah.
So, others to fall victim of this stunt? Well, hundreds on homeopathic overdose day in 2011. And more recently, Cybabe in 2014, all of which were covered up similarly.
So he thinks that there's been like mass death and people have covered it up.
Yeah, because the new atheists don't want it to get out that homeopathy actually
What does he
works.
think the new atheists are? Like, we have all this control,
Well,
and
at least
we can cover shit up.
At least he didn't say, like, they and them, like he was specific.
Well, I mean, like when the Amazing Atheist had that banana video leaked of him shoving a banana up his ass, he had zero ability to control that. It spread like fucking wildfire. We don't have nearly as much control as you think we do.
Well, maybe we got together with the World Trade Organization.
That's what it is. See, it's a false flag operation.
Yes.
That's what it is.
Okay, well, that's all there is for that.
Okay. Okay, so for our next set of conspiracies, we're going to start it off with the CERN Portal Project. Okay. So, this one's a doozy.
Okay.
You may have heard of this when it was happening, but I'd never heard of it when it was out there, because when I started doing research, it turned out it was a much bigger thing than I thought it initially was, but it was still pretty crazy, so I included it. But apparently, there is a conspiracy theory that CERN, the organization out in, I think that's like Sweden, where they're doing all the particle physics research, is using the Large Hadron Collider to open a portal to hell.
A portal to hell?
A portal to hell.
Why would you want to do that? If you can open a portal, why not open a portal to heaven?
It gets very in-depth, actually.
Okay.
We're going to start off, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys listen to this Alex Jones video when he was talking about this. And then I'm going to tell you about a CERN insider.
It's like a confirmed Illuminati.
Something like that. So let's start with the Alex Jones video.
Okay.
The whole idea of stargates is as old as antiquity.
Well, they admit they're trying to build one at the Hadron Collider. They dedicate it to Shiva. They've been caught doing all these weird mock human sacrifices there. What's going on there?
Well, here's the deal. Jesus said that the gates of hell are going to open, but they wouldn't prevail. And what a gate is something that either holds something back or allows something through. So what Hollywood, how about the story on Drudge today that the CIA has been involved in 1,800 war movies? Well, let me make it clear that they have controlled the narrative on science fiction for so long because that's the way they would leak the truth. Invaders from Mars, the 55, 57 black and white film, was the first movie to deal with implants. Literal implants that the Martians put in the little boys' parents' back of their skull.
And then now they're putting brain chips in the troops.
Absolutely. So and when I wrote...
And look how CERN's symbol is 3 6s.
Well, not only that, but that's the destroyer. See, this is why CERN, they're opening the gate. The Shiva statue that you see in the background, you showed it, that absolutely is cosmic destruction and rebirth, okay? It's a Hindu philosophy of reincarnation.
Which is really is a variant of the Illuminati philosophy of the balance of destruction in life, or AKA Darth Vader.
Right, or even simpler than that, order out of chaos. See, what people don't get is that the power of the Illuminati is real. It's not on the same level as God's that he gives to his people, but his people don't believe that God, here's the thing, I'm sorry. The point is, the Satanists believe that Satan's real and gives them power. The Christians are always trying to explain away a supernatural God, a supernatural Savior, Jesus Christ, and the idea that somehow the intellect of gaining the world's acceptance will win people to Jesus, it gains their contempt. Every man who's listening to this broadcast and listens to your show, Alex, and listens to those of us who are saying this, remember, don't allow the emasculation of your ability to procreate truth be stolen by those who are primarily nothing more than barbarians.
Right. Don't just play fantasy football, but go out and be involved. And if you can't admit they're trying to do forced vaccines or have chimeras, or that 82% of the smallmouth bass nationwide are bisexual now because of the chemicals, if you can't admit all the admitted wildness, how will you admit the even craziness of we're on a planet in deep space and what the Bible tells us?
Okay, so that was that was the video.
I have no idea what the fuck that. There's so much there. I don't even know what to say.
Yeah, it was a whole lot of fucking crazy.
Shiva.
So, let me address some of the points that were probably confusing in that video. The first thing, the Shiva thing. So there is a statue of Shiva outside of CERN, and it's in one of their courtyards. And if you go to the CERN website, there's an FAQ page which actually addresses a lot of what he said. But it says that the Shiva statue is actually a gift from India to celebrate its association with CERN, which started in the 1960s and remains strong today. So in the Hindu religion, the Lord Shiva is practicing the Natajara dance, which symbolizes Shakti, or life force. And this deity was chosen by the Indian government to use as a metaphor, being drawn between the cosmic dance of Nurticide and the modern-day study of the cosmic dance of, subatomic particles.
Cool.
So India is one of CERN's observer states, along with the USA, Russia, and Japan. And CERN is a multicultural organization that welcomes scientists from hundreds of different countries and institutions. But the Shiva statue is actually not the only piece of art or even the only statue on the CERN premises. They have all kinds of different art from different countries, different organizations, some of it religious in nature, some of it not. In fact, if you look, there's actually this thing called art at CERN, I think is what it's called. Huh. But it's this whole movement where they're actually bringing in art organizations who do painting or cinematography. And they bring in dancers and, these high grade cameras, and they do sort of music videos almost on CERN property. And they hire professional photographers to take pictures of the Large Hadron Collider and, get all this stuff in there. So it's a very kind of artsy atmosphere at CERN.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
But they kind of just focus in on Shiva because scary brown people?
Yeah, pretty much. Okay. Those brown religions, those dangerous brown religions that allow women to be deities.
Ooh, scary.
Scary.
Heart's pounding.
What happened to my world? So the other thing you talked about was the human sacrifices. So this is based on a leaked quote-unquote video that was put up on YouTube where there's apparently a human sacrifice being performed in front of the Shiva statue at the CERN facility. And on the CERN website, they actually address this as well because it's been a big point of contention. And it says that CERN fills up with visitors over the summer, and many, many people come from all over the country at that point in time. And, it's basically, they say what happened, it was a joke. And I actually did some research into this to see if they weren't just blowing smoke. Mm-hmm. Apparently it's true that there is a summer program offered by CERN, and you can go verify this on their website, where they bring in undergraduate students who can attend for 8 to 13 weeks to attend lectures, visit the accelerators and experimental areas, which basically means that bored college students, if they wanted to play a joke or a prank like this, they would have had the access, the time, and the means to put this stunt together. Because I was watching a video where the guy was saying it's real, and he was pointing out that, there's security guards. You can't just go in there and make a video, and he's filming from Building 40, and Building 40 has restricted access. Yeah. And the thing is, if the students were there for the program, they would have been living on site. Mm-hmm. They would have had access to all the buildings. They would have had the time and the means to put this whole thing together. But the other thing I thought was hilarious is that in the video you see this woman's laid down in front of the Shiva statue, and people are walking around in robes, and they come and they stab her.
Okay.
And there's no blood on the knife. There's no blood anywhere. Even though it's kind of far away and it's grainy, you can see the knife stab and then come up clean.
Okay. So my problem with that kind of stuff though is if it's supposed to be so secretive, what the fuck are they doing filming it?
Yeah, right? It's a leaked video.
Were they just going to take it, and was it for training purposes?
There was some brave soul who wanted to expose the truth. He couldn't be silenced anymore. So the other thing he addressed was the CERN symbol. Like, why is there 3 6s in it? Ha ha! Checkmate, CERN. We got you, you Satanists. Actually, the CERN logo is taken from a design of the synchrodon particle accelerators. So originally the design was going to be like a black hole, basically. But obviously it doesn't look very aesthetically pleasing, and it's difficult to replicate that. So instead what they did is they altered the original design to a simplified representation of the accelerator chain and the particle tracks. So it's basically like a representation of the Large Hadron Collider, if you follow the track. That's what it kind of looks like, and that's how they push the different particles into the machine and get it going.
Okay.
So they're not 3 6s at all. That's just not true. He mentioned this in passing, the Mandela effect.
Oh, I missed that part. What do you say about that?
Basically, I think he just mentioned it when he was just, shooting off a big rant of stuff, but this is actually kind of a funny thing. This is a subset of the conspiracy theory. It's a conspiracy theory within a conspiracy theory.
Great.
What they think. So for those of you who don't know, the Mandela effect is a psychological phenomenon of how memory is altered. So basically they're talking about the effect that people have when they misremember significant events and they recall things that didn't happen, or they remember them differently in certain cases. And people like Alex Jones believe that the Mandela effect is a result of CERN altering reality. So all the Mandela effect is actually your brain trying to retain memories of what reality was like previous to CERN altering it.
Okay, so this is interesting because I had a hard time understanding what the Mandela effect was, because I had written a biography of Nelson Mandela for high school. So I was like, who the fuck thinks that he died in prison? Like, I couldn't figure out what the fuck they were talking about when they were describing what the Mandela effect was. So did CERN not work on me?
I guess.
Okay.
So that's what they were talking about there. Now, the other part of this is I watched another video. I'm not going to include it because it's like 30 minutes long.
Oh my God.
It's ridiculous.
You did too much work for this, Michael. I did it in like 2 hours.
It's hilarious. It was like 30 minutes of like, I can't believe this shit.
Uh-huh.
And
what's it called, just so people can find it?
I think if you type in CERN Portal to Hell, it'll come up. I think it's called CERN Insider, quotes. The CERN Insider.
CERN Insider?
No, there's the thing. There's multiple videos of this, and the first one I found, I thought it was going to be like someone talking. It was like, when you type in text on your computer, and then you have the computer auto read.
Oh, I hate
and
those.
It can read it was that.
I hate
it
those.
was that. It wasn't even a person.
Oh, those are so hard to watch.
The other one that I actually listened to in its entirety sounded like it was happening on a phone call. So it was very kind of difficult to hear at points, but I mean, it was insane. It was insane. So it's funny because the first part of this video, it actually has some like pretty sound scientific information when they're talking about like antimatter and the nature of matter as we currently understand it. It's actually pretty solid stuff. But the rest of the video is just straight up pure speculation, wild ass assertions, and just, connecting dots that aren't fucking there.
Oh, say it ain't so, Michael.
And just saying stuff. So it's funny because this is supposed to be like an insider from inside of CERN. But I don't believe for 1 second this person is a fucking scientist. I think what they did is they did like some really intensive research about like antimatter and particle physics. And then they got like a CERN janitor. And they were like, here, read this. And then just say whatever you want after that.
Do you think they went that far, Michael? Like they actually got somebody who worked there? I don't think so. I think it was more of like the equivalent of those people in the pharmaceutical commercials that are wearing the white coats, but it says paid actor. Right underneath.
That's what it is. So, in this video, they talk about how antimatter exists in another dimension. Much in the same way our dimension is made up of matter, there's an alternate dimension made up of antimatter. And it's a very like chaotic and it's a dark place full of dark creatures. And they said that
it's like the what's it called, the dark zone or the dark world?
Yeah,
in
kind of
Thor.
like that. Yeah, or like in Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Kind of like that.
Down.
Yeah, the upside down. So this guy literally cites research done in the 1800s about paranormal activity. But the way he says it, he's like, there was research done in the 1800s on, paranormal stuff, but not like the movies, not like Paranormal Activity, the movies. That's stupid. This is real.
Yeah, they didn't even have radios back then.
So he talks about how from this research, they know for a fact, it is a demonstrable fact, that antimatter attracts demons and other creatures from the alternate dimension.
What?
And CERN is planning to amass a large amount of antimatter and use it as demon bait to attract demons into our world and create a gate for the Antichrist to enter our reality.
Okay, so I don't know much about particle physics, but antimatter, doesn't it cancel out with matter?
So basically, this kind of comes back to some of the Big Bang cosmology, the belief being that at the time of the Big Bang, you had all the matter in the universe that was ever going to exist, and then antimatter. And they combined and canceled out. So when antimatter and matter interact, they essentially cancel each other out. So it's, in our observable universe, everything is made of matter. Even empty, dead space still has stuff. That's what Lawrence Krauss was saying about A Universe Coming from Nothing, his book. Part of what he was saying is that nothingness, as we understand it, isn't really nothingness in terms of physics. There's a different understanding there, where nothingness is basically points at which matter and antimatter have fused. And we can theoretically create something from nothing if we unfuse the matter and the antimatter, because we will have new matter that didn't exist in that current form at that point in time. So we would be able to technically create something from nothing. But nothing isn't nothing, though.
So the fusion, like the antimatter and the matter together, is like nothingness, not just the antimatter. Because if you had, say, like a chair...
Well, that's the thing. The fusion is nothingness in the colloquial sense, but physically it is still something.
Yeah. So if you had a chair made of matter, it would look like a regular old chair. But if you had a chair made of antimatter, it would still look like a regular chair.
So that's when people say, oh, you think the universe came from nothing. Well, no, that's not the claim, because we don't have a nothing to observe. There's no observable nothing in our universe. It's still something.
Yeah, so I'm not going to pretend to understand particle physics and stuff like that, but
it gets a lot more.
I do know.
It's crazy.
I do know that demons are not attracted to fucking positrons.
like deer feed. You just leave it out there and then demons come.
It's like demons hang out at the event horizon just waiting.
I'm going to actually give you it's not a direct quote, it's across about 3 to 5 minutes of audio, and I paraphrased what he was saying, but I got it as closest to the way he was saying it as I could, because I was writing it down as he was saying it. This is talking about how antimatter brings out darkness energy. Whatever the fuck that is. So this is what he said, more or less. How you feel attracts what energy you draw upon. Doctors know this.
No.
Doctors know this, Ryan. Medical doctors know this. You can draw upon energy from this realm, the good realm, and have positive results. That's called faith.
What?
Doctors believe in faith. They believe in faith. That's why they give out placebos.
This is too much. I can't stand it.
People have been cured from cancer, back injuries, quadriplegia, simply based on their faith.
This is getting into dangerous territory.
When a person draws on energy from the other realm, the bad realm, the opposite of this realm, when a person changes their emotional state, their energy changes, and they begin to draw their energy from this chaotic, violent dimension where they draw dark matter from. Scientists are aware of this.
Wait, did you... Because antimatter is different from dark matter. Did they...
They equated the two as being the same thing.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, they're the same. So, again, another reason I don't think this guy's a scientist.
Yeah, no shit.
And then he goes on to say, scientists are aware of this. On the spring equinox, the forces on the Earth change. And they know this, which is what allows them to have better results in their Hadron Collider tests. to create more demon bait.
Oh my god.
That's basically like what he was talking about for a half hour. For a half hour.
Jesus Christ.
And then talking about like Bible quotes thrown in there, and then how the end times are coming, and oh my god.
God, you have so much more patience than me.
It was insane. It was just fucking, it was crazy fanatical bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
And the last thing I'll talk about are the other things that Christian fanatics and conspiracy theories say about CERN research.
Okay.
The first one is scientists are building the kingdom of the Antichrist, and they're trying to create the portal to hell to introduce him into our world, like I mentioned earlier. Clyde Lewis wrote on the Subground Zero website, quote, "Is it just a coincidence that CERN is short for the horned god Cernunnos? Is it also a coincidence that CERN has to go deep underground to do their god harnessing experiments?
Oh god.
Cernunnos was the god of the underworld." See the connection?
Oh, okay.
And he's talking about a Celtic pagan god, and apparently they're worshipping this Celtic pagan god.
That makes sense. I wonder if they have a statue of him there.
And of course, Clyde Lewis, being a renowned particle physicist knowing his shit, says antimatter is a demonically charged particle. Demonically charged, retrieved from the pit, bringing with it chaos and destruction.
That is amazing.
Demon charge.
Demon charged.
We have positive charge, negative charge, and demon charge.
Yeah, it's a demonitron.
Demonitron. Electrons, protons, and demonitrons. Oh god, so that's what I got for CERN.
Okay.
So that's pretty... The last one's worse.
I disapprove.
The last one is worse. So much worse.
I disapprove, Michael. Okay, so this one is a little bit more lighthearted, I think. No, it's not. Anyway.
No, it's not.
If you listen to Pink Floyd enough, you'll come across this like eerie kind of wailing sound.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds a little bit like this. And it's included in a lot of their songs. It's very prominent in the song Echoes, but it's in, I think, like 9 out of 14 of their albums. So it started in A Saucer Full of Secrets, which was their 1968 album. So, according to Vito James of RateYourMusic.com, the wailing sound was not, in fact, David Gilmour's slide guitar with the cables of his wah pedal inverted. No. It was his alien brethren calling out to him. So these noises continued into the 1990s, with only a brief absence in 1972, when the aliens' transmissions were obscured by clouds.
Obscured by clouds?
Yes.
Because clouds do that.
Yes, but so when this happened, the band decided to make that the title of their album for that year, Obscured by Clouds.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Close to the advent of the internet, an anonymous whistleblower came forth with a riddle for the Pink Floyd fan forum on Usenet called the Publius Enigma. Nobody could figure out what the riddle meant, or even what the riddle even was, but Vito James figured it out. And it was not an early viral marketing campaign by EMI, the band's production label, for their upcoming album, The Division Bell. It was the key to the meaning behind the alien transmissions.
Ooh,
so
like
this is
like
how
a cipher.
Yes, so this is how it went down. David Gilmour, an alien, wanted control of Pink Floyd. So he had the guitarist, Syd Barrett, taken to the dark side of the moon, where he went insane.
Oh, shit.
David Gilmour took his place and began to insert the transmissions into the band's music.
Oh, man.
But Roger Waters, the band's bassist and singer,
preach it,
caught on. So
reel me in. You got me on the hook. Reel me in, Ryan.
So David Gilmour strong-armed him out of the band, and after this, he commenced the final stage of his plan by encoding plans for an Earth evacuation into the album A Momentary Lapse of Reason.
Okay. I'm sold.
That's it.
Well, that's something.
Yeah, that certainly is something.
Okay, for our third conspiracy theory here, I got one here called Project Bluebeam. So,
Blue beam?
Bluebeam, yeah, like a blue laser kind of deal. So,
okay.
This one's really odd. Like, this is of the sort of strain of the New World Order, but it's not the New World Order, kind of. You know, so basically, the conspiracy theory claims that NASA is attempting to implement the New Age religion with the Antichrist at the head of the New World Order via technologically simulated second coming.
What?
A technologically simulated second coming.
Okay.
So
like holograph projections?
Actually, it's a little more complex than that. So this is a theory put forth by it was a journalist in Quebec named Serge Monast, and he actually wrote a book, and the book is called Project Bluebeam quotation marks NASA. Like, there's a whole conspiracy theory around that in itself. Like, they think that the journalist and some other guy he was working with were assassinated by the Canadian government, and, you know, they kidnapped his daughter in an effort to dissuade him from publishing his book and everything. But he really just died of a heart attack. Like,
it's so funny when the fucking conspiracy theorists like try to claim all this shit happened to people. It's like, first of all, it's the Canadian government, you know?
Yeah, right.
Well, sorry, we have to kidnap you, eh?
Sorry. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Like, you know, they're grabbing her, like, throwing up against the wall. Sorry, put the cuffs on her. So sorry. Anyway, this project is supposed to go down in 4 steps. And step 1 requires the breakdown of all archaeological knowledge. And apparently this is going to be accomplished by faking earthquakes at precise locations on the planet and fake new discoveries at these locations. And it's going to be like, the discoveries are going to be like these grand discoveries that show that all fundamental religious doctrine are false. But they're going to focus specifically on Christians and Muslims.
Okay, I think I need a little bit of clarification here. So they want to have targeted earthquakes destroy archaeological sites?
So I think what they're saying is, like, all the archaeological evidence that supports, like, the real religions, like, you know, Christianity and Islam, they're going to use precisely targeted earthquakes to destroy all that and then replace it with fake evidence to show that it's not true.
Okay, so like, this is probably what happened when Jesus buried the dinosaur bones?
Yeah, or like, you know, when the Mormons said that the earthquake destroyed all the landmarkers that showed us where, you know, Nephi and Lehi made landfall in America. It's like that.
That's true. Okay, go on.
So that's step 1. And then step 2 involves a gigantic space show wherein 3D holograph laser projections will be beamed all over the planet. And this is like the actual Blue Beam. That's where the Project Blue Beam name comes from. Mm-hmm. So these projections will take the shape of whatever deity is most prominent, and it's going to speak in all the languages so everybody can understand it. And at the end of the slideshow, all the gods are going to merge into one god, and that one god is going to be the Antichrist.
What? Okay, that was a curveball at the end there.
Right?
But so, you know what really interests me about this is that, did you ever read the Left Behind books?
No, but I saw some of the movie, or I saw the movie with Nicolas Cage, and I know what they're about, yeah.
In one of the books, I think it's the end of the initial series before he did the like Millennium series and whatever.
Yeah.
So this is like when the second coming happens.
Mhm.
And it's pretty much exactly like that. Like an actual personal Jesus shows up in front of everybody and speaks their language. So I wonder if, like, which came first.
Well, I don't know.
Like,
well, actually, this one dates back to like I want to say the 1960s, or even a little before that, because of the whole story about. Well, he died in 1996, so actually, this probably was a little later than that. In like the 80s is probably when he was doing this research and wrote his book and stuff. So,
yeah, I think the Left Behind books were written in the 90s, so
it was probably after the fact.
I would absolutely love if LaHaye and Jenkins got their idea from that guy.
But see, the funniest part to me is, like, they have all these, like, hollow projected gods, like, all the different gods, and then they all merge into one god. Like, what if the computer guy who's in charge of the laser beam, like, fucks up and they start all having, like, a god orgy, like Allah bends the Abrahamic god over, just starts pounding his ass, and then, you have Vishnu come in with all his arms and shit. And they're like, oh, shit, oh, god damn it.
And the Trinity just fucks itself.
They're like, oh, fuck, who was in charge of the tech? Come on, man, we're trying to start a new world order here. That's just sloppy.
Well, I don't know. Maybe that could happen. The Hawaii thing that happened recently when they said inbound missile.
Yeah.
And then they couldn't figure out how to, like, fix it for, like, 7 minutes or something like that. I mean, that is actually completely believable.
That's probably how it would go down, just because of, user error, like human error. This stage actually has two parts to it. The first part is apparently going to be where they program a Soviet computer and they're going to feed it with minute psychological particulars based on their studies on anatomy and electromechanical composition of the human body and the studies of the electrical, chemical, and biological properties of the brain. And every human is going to be associated with a unique radio wavelength. So we all get our own wavelength. And these computers are also apparently capable of inducing suicidal thoughts for some reason. I don't know why you would need that.
It's like The Happening.
Except it's not the plants, it's the computers.
That's
so
great.
Once they program these computers, the second sub-step of this part is going to be when the holograms result in the dissolving of social and religious order and, quote, setting loose millions of programmed religious fanatics through demonic possession on a scale never witnessed before.
Wait, so NASA is going to be instituting demonic possessions? Is that what you just said?
Somehow, that's what it says. I guess the demons are going to get into your brain via the Soviet computer.
Okay.
The Soviet computer is going to piggyback in a demon like a Trojan horse. And just
okay, because that
download
makes
it.
sense. Because one thing that I've learned from all these movies with demons is that they actually have to have a physical component to they're transmitted by touch, they're not airborne.
Yeah. So the funniest part of this sub point here is that the UN is going to be playing Beethoven's Ode to Joy as an anthem for the introduction of the New World and the One World religion. So while everybody's possessed, you're just gonna hear Ode to Joy.
Of course, the UN has to be behind it.
Yeah, it's got to be the UN.
God, the UN, the Jews, and the Illuminati seem to come into every single conspiracy.
So then that gets us to step 3, and there's only step 3 and step 4, so we're almost done. So step 3 is, quote, telepathic electronic two-way communication. And it involves making people think their God is speaking to them through telepathy, projected onto their brain, by using extremely low frequency radio waves.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. It's just, what? So you're getting God radio in your head?
Yeah, it's oh no, 14 hertz.
I don't see how that step I don't know, maybe it's explained in the fourth step.
People talk about the brown note as a note at the frequency that your bowels vibrate. So maybe it's there's a certain frequency at which God vibrates. So.
Well, they're going to be, I guess, simulating deities talking to people through telepathy. I guess through the Soviet computers again.
And the funny thing is too, if this conspiracy were made today, it would make a lot more sense if they were to say that NASA was going to spike the water source with DMT. That would probably have a similar effect.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, this conspiracy theory has all the trademarks of, like, the fears of the 80s, you got those fears of the Russians, you got the fear of, the satanic craze. It's all in there, It's got all the elements. No wonder it was popular back then.
Yeah, it seems a little dated.
Yeah, for sure. So then that gets us to step 4, and step 4 has 3 components to it. The first component is making humanity think an alien invasion is about to occur in every major city. The second component is making the Christians think the rapture is about to happen. And the third component is a mixture of electronic and supernatural forces, allowing the supernatural forces to travel through fiber optics, coax, power, and telephone lines to penetrate all electronic equipment and appliances that will, by then, all have special microchips installed. What the fuck?
What I imagine is like that's the origin story of the brave little toaster.
It's really the brave little demon who's trapped in a toaster.
Oh my god, this is bad shit.
I know, it's fucking insane. Seriously, you think supernatural forces can go through fiber optics, coax, and power lines? Are you serious? Or like it also says phone line, so is your phone gonna ring and then you're gonna pick it up and be like, hello, it's gonna be like, hail Satan. Oh fuck, what? My phone's possessed.
So we're insulated from that one now because we have cell phones.
We don't have corded
and demons
phones
can't
anymore.
Transfer themselves over the cell towers because they need a physical means.
Yeah,
we're safe with our cell phones.
See, that was a smart technological advancement on our part because that was really just protective measures against demons, not just technological progression. So it actually goes a little bit more into detail with this. So a device has apparently already been perfected, like it's done, that will lift enormous numbers of people, like people believe will happen in the rapture, and that UFO abductions are the government actually just testing this device. They're going around and simulating abductions as like the beta test.
Okay.
Project Bluebeam proponents believe psychological preparations have already been made through like sci-fi media. That's like, whenever the vigilant Christian Mario and that whole crowd are like, they're just conditioning you for the Antichrist to return,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically what that is. So, but yeah, after you get all through all 4 steps, then chaos is going to break out and, people are going to be scared. They're not going to know what the fuck is going on. And that is when the New World Order is going to, swoop in and take over because everybody's going to be really desperate and just be willing to accept them at that point.
This is more convoluted than Chancellor Palpatine's New World Order. I mean, if you thought that was complicated, then just take a look at this. I mean, he was just playing the long game.
This is a whole other level of fucking crazy. I mean, you got fucking NASA in there, you got the Soviets, you got aliens and simulated aliens and, the fear of, advanced technology used to trick people and like the UN.
It's funny that, I'm glad that you mentioned like the point of all this because you said it at the beginning, but I had forgotten by about halfway through, like what the fuck is the point of this?
Yeah, that's what it's leading to, is that's the one world order.
Yeah, I was like, wait, okay, so there's something here. Is it like they're trying to show off their new technology or like what?
Yeah,
and
so
there's much better ways to take over the world, by the way.
I know, right? Like, this is the most convoluted, like, just so many steps that don't seem to really connect with each other. And leading to, basically, they just want, like, a bigger UN. Like, that's basically what they want.
Yeah, everybody knows the real way to take over the world with a new world order is to do basically exactly what Russia is doing right now. No, that's a real conspiracy.
So I didn't bother debunking any of this because it's all fucking ridiculous. But I did find some, like some people kind of debunking it a little bit. Basically because not a lot about this guy who wrote this book is known, And not a whole lot is known about the process he used to gather all his information, all this stuff outside of, just fucking making it up.
Yeah, no shit.
There is an old Star Trek episode from like the 70s, and the plot of that particular episode is identical to this conspiracy theory. Like, it's almost exactly the same. It's just like put it into Star Trek situations, and that's how they went through with it. I don't know if it was like some alien race was trying to use it to take over the planet or some shit like that. But again, not a lot is known, so it's hard to draw like this link between like, oh, he just took it, like he just ripped it off and wrote a book about it. But the fact that it was out there before he wrote his book, like this concept, these ideas already existed. So
yeah, it's like the whole like, where Joseph Smith got his ideas.
Yeah, exactly. Same kind of concept, except he really did just plagiarize a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
So that's all I got for that one.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
That was a fucking doozy.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, so this one is probably the worst one. It is super fucking offensive.
Awesome. Awesome.
Do you remember when a bunch of fuckheads on the internet were saying that Michelle Obama was a man?
No.
Okay, well that happened during Barack Obama's presidency.
Okay.
And they were saying like, "Oh, look at her shoulders. They're so broad. She looks like a man." Bullshit. But so there is an idea on the fucking internet that all or most celebrities, male and female, are all secretly transgender.
All celebrities are transgender?
That's right. Michelle Obama was born...
Is it like they all happen to be transgender, or is it like a rite of passage?
Oh, no,
like...
it's an Illuminati thing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a rite in the Illuminati. If you're going to become a celebrity, you have to change gender, apparently. So
compulsory.
Yeah, Michelle Obama, born Michael. Nick Offerman, born Nicole.
Wow.
Hulk Hogan,
yeah,
born She-Hulk Hogan.
So I see what they did there. They like took the first few letters of each name and they're like Michelle, Michael. There we go. All right, what's the next one? Okay. Nick, Nicole. There we go. I'm figuring this out. The Hulk. Oh fuck. Hulk. You know what? Fuck it. She-Hulk.
Queen Elizabeth was born King Eli.
See? Elizabeth, Eli.
Yeah. Will Smith was born Jada. And Jada Pinkett Smith was born Will.
Wow. So they just switched the names on that one.
That's right.
Wow.
They've been lying to us, dude.
Wow. Okay.
So why? Well, according to users of v/transvestigation on vote.com, this is not, in fact, just a disturbingly sexist internet bullying technique perpetuated by people who haven't figured out that tranny is a slur.
Mm-hmm.
Some claim that transvestigations are meant to expose the, quote, transgender agenda, which, in reality, is attempts by trans individuals to be treated like people.
Fuck that!
But...
those monsters!
But, according to transgenderagenda.com, which is described as threat detected by WebRoot...
Threat detected? Even the computer knows. The computer figured it out.
The agenda of the, quote, transgendereds is to, number 1, destroy the economy. Number 2, corrupt our schools.
Of course, you gotta go for the kids.
Number 3, to erode traditional values.
Okay.
4, threaten the superiority of religious freedom.
Oh no, not the religious freedom.
Yeah, the superiority.
What the fuck does that even mean?
I don't know. Number 5, make language difficulter.
Difficulter? They're succeeding.
Yeah,
they're already winning.
See, I'm paraphrasing, but...
They're already winning.
Number 6. This is literally what it says. To teach us how to think, in quotes.
Think. Wow.
So, Michael,
wow.
let's take a minute to talk about this website.
I think your computer might be a little bit transphobic because it sees transgender agenda. It's like, oh fuck no, threat detected, threat detected.
Yeah. So, holy shit, Michael, this fucking website. The first thing that happens when you click proceed anyway, is a MIDI rendition of the Star Spangled Banner.
Oh god. Oh god, no.
Second is a bar of links to Fox News, LifeSite News, and the Tea Party.
Oh, come on.
Next is the headline, Exposed, the Transgender Agenda, in red, white, and blue with,
of course,
I shit you not, Michael, a fucking explosion animation.
Okay. I thought it was going to be like an eagle with a machine gun or something.
I mean, I bet it's on there.
America,
but,
fuck yeah.
Yeah, I just described it to you, so don't go there.
You don't need to waste your time.
Yeah, please don't. Other perpetuators of the transgender agenda theory include, but most definitely not limited to, the National Review, Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity, Tucker Carlson, and various people with actual fucking power in the government.
Oh, God.
Other proponents of the transvestigation claims are...
Transvestigation?
Yeah, are Alex Jones and Owen Schroyer of InfoWars.
Oh, God.
Who claimed that Michelle Obama was a man and that she murdered Joan Rivers to cover it up. Yeah.
Wow, wow.
So anyway,
that's pretty intense.
What happens in these transvestigations?
Oh boy.
Basically, some asshole on YouTube gets a compilation of various unflattering photos of women and photos of men that they think make them look feminine.
Wow.
And the pictures of women could be of them without makeup or upset or while they're exercising or eating. While the pictures of men are when they're clean shaven, maybe like they're modeling or posing for a photo shoot or some other supposedly feminine pose. And then these assholes proceed to use pseudo-anatomy to try to point out things that they think proves their point.
So I was thinking about how people have been discussing that a lot of the famous athletes, or possibly all of the famous athletes these days, are gender-inverted people. I was wondering just how far back that went exactly. So I was interested in taking a look at someone whose name is still well known today, many decades later, Babe Ruth. Now, immediately I feel a very strange energy looking in this person's eyes. It feels like the FTM energy, the kind of lost, dead energy. It doesn't feel like a projected male energy to me. In the 20s and the early 30s, the fashion for women was very unfeminine. When people these days do remakes of those days, they always kind of glamorize the appearance to what is appealing for a modern eye. But in those days, women would wear a kind of sort of reverse corset idea, where they would completely constrict their chest and try and push the fat from the hips up into the kind of waist region in order to create more of a kind of straight boy-like torso. So that was really common among flappers. And as the flapper fashion was the popular fashion of the age, most women would try and kind of copy it, as with most fashions. So here, you're seeing that there's not a defined kind of waist or anything, but it could be that there's a natural female waist higher up. Certainly the legs don't look particularly masculine, neither do the arms, neither does the face. So this person, you can't really tell with the body line because of the fashion of the day. Hands don't look really big. A lot of men in my age group, in this generation, they tend to have that kind of gender marker not as defined as in earlier generations, so they don't typically have quite as masculine looking hands. That's what I find anyway. But for a man who is from this time period, I kind of would expect to see, stronger looking hands in this. They're not delicate and female looking, but they're also not very masculine. They kind of have a sort of pudgy, undefined look to them, which is tending more toward female than male.
Wow. According to The Sun, whose factual rating from Media Bias Fact Checked is mixed, but this seems to check out. a YouTuber claimed that Tom Brady and his wife, Giselle Bundchen, say that, are transgender because, get ready for it, Michael, their belly buttons are too high.
Wow. Their belly buttons are too high.
Are too high, yes.
Because that's like, that's how you spot a trans.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the technology for the surgery is getting better, so they're able to hide in plain sight. So you gotta be able to spot them. You gotta look for the belly button.
Yeah. So lastly, and most despicable and mind-numbingly stupid, is that these fuckers use actual transgender actors to try to prove their point, as if to say, "See, they are everywhere." Motherfuckers.
Wow.
So that's all for that one.
That's
all for that one. So all these stories that I read to you were all made up.
Yeah.
Obviously. But one of them was made up by me.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh, all right.
So out of all three that I read, which one do you think was fake?
Well, the Pink Floyd one's real because that's what started this whole thing.
True.
The transsexual one, I was actually able to corroborate, so that one's real. So that only leaves the first one, the one about James or Andy being dead.
And you got it. You win. But the thing is that it doesn't have to be fake. You can make it real.
It's like Tinkerbell. If you believe, she's real.
Exactly. You can make it real. Tweet out hashtag James Randi is dead. Hashtag Cybabe is dead.
Hashtag Homo sapiens.
Hashtag Homo sapiens. Next question is, did you find any conspiracy theories that you would want to be true?
Yeah, so we had this idea when we were kind of pitching around this concept of an episode. In our third Mormon missionary meeting, we talked about how the Mormons were like, you know, we want to issue you a challenge, and we want you to think about our concept of God, and do you want that to be true? And so we kind of ran with it a little bit, and we decided to find one conspiracy theory that we wish would be true. Like, if it was true, it'd be great. For mine, I found it's a celebrity one, but I don't want the forced transgender operations one. That one sounds bad.
Yeah, it does.
This one has to do with celebrities such as Jay-Z, Nicolas Cage, Orlando Bloom, Matthew McConaughey, Christian Bale, Brad Pitt, Alec and Stephen Baldwin, Mark Zuckerberg, John Travolta, Justin Timberlake, Sylvester Stallone, Eddie Murphy, and Keanu Reeves are either time travelers or vampires or both. So there's a video. If you guys want it, remember, email us and I can provide you with a lot of the stuff I've been talking about today. But there's a video that's hilarious. It's fantastic, where they're pointing out how, you know, all these celebrities were actually people back in like the 1800s or whatever, and they put side by side photos to go like, see.
Yeah, I think everybody's probably seen at least the Nicolas Cage one. And that is pretty creepy.
The ones that were my favorite from this compilation video were Union General Isaac Stevens is Brad Pitt. King Philip IV, King of Spain in the 1600s is Mark Zuckerberg.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that one.
And the best one, my favorite one, Pope Gregory IX is Sylvester Stallone.
I've seen that one too.
That's awesome.
That's a good one. That would be cool.
Because, I mean, if you think about it, that'd be like something for us to work for. Like, like if time travel is possible, then, you know, that technological advance could be available. And I mean, as long as we're talking about like Back to the Future or Doctor Who rules, it's cool. But if it's like Terminator rules, like, oh, fuck that. You know, one-way trip and then you're stuck there. That would fucking suck. And if they're vampires, then, you know, if we get popular enough and we can, like, get into that sphere of, like, you know, our own niche of popularity to where maybe we could be, like, at a level that's equivalent enough to where they're like, okay, we'll turn you guys into vampires too. But not like gay Twilight vampires. But like,
the real ones.
Like, what is it, 30 Days of Night or
Blade
or Interview with a Vampire. Any of those would be acceptable.
Okay, so mine, Michael, I'm just going to have to go with the classic. It's not human intelligence. I want the radical life extension technology.
But see, you could get that with the vampires, though.
Exactly. It's funny how ours kind of they mesh pretty well. It's like if you had the radical life extension technology, then you'd be able to do it. So yeah, I'm gonna have to go with that.
Yeah, it's pretty solid. Yeah, it looks like we're on the same wavelength here. But see, Ryan, would you want radical life extension, or would you want radical life extension plus superpowers?
Plus superpowers.
Exactly, because you know when you're a vampire, like if also another acceptable version would be the that new Origin movie with Orlando Bloom, like Dracula Origins or whatever.
Yeah.
And he could like turn into a swarm of bats, or like he essentially had teleportation powers and super strength and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could have the radical life extension and superpowers.
Okay.
Yeah, see?
Yeah, I think we pretty much agree on this,
Yeah.
Michael.
That's pretty solid, right?
Yeah, just Alex Jones is such a good communicator. I had to pick him.
Thanks for listening to the Unholy Generation podcast with your hosts, Mike
and Ryan. If you want to contact us, send us an email at unholypod@gmail.com. Don't forget to check out our YouTube channel, like our episodes, subscribe to our channel, and share us on all your social media.
Follow us on Twitter at UnholyGems, like us on Facebook at the Unholy Generation Podcast, and follow us on SoundCloud.
We are now on iTunes, so go look us up, get all our new episodes on your Apple devices, and leave us a good rating.
Also, I hope you guys liked our new original music. It was composed by me, Mike, with samplings from The Amazing Waltz by Premier Loops and Face Fudge 2v2 150 by Livid Life.
And tune into our next episode, where we will be discussing Hare Krishna, also known as the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. This is a funny story because I was just walking on campus and I was approached by this guy who was a monk, and he had books, and he was just talking to me. So I bought his books because they looked funny. And then I went home and I told Mike what happened. And he had been approached by the same organization.
The same books.
Yeah, he's got the same books. So I was invited to one of their meditation sessions or whatever. And so that's one of the reasons why Michael is here, because we're going to go tomorrow.
Check that out.
Yeah. So tune in.